Alrighty. Hey now, cats, we're back again this week on Movie Snobs. If you're tuned in for the first time, or you're tuned in for the how manyth time,
Why did you start here?
yeah, why did you start here, dummy? Go back and watch the other ones. But now that you are here, you might as well stick around. And the whole premise, real quickly, is me. I like horrible, bloody, disgusting horror movies. Sometimes that have meaning. Sometimes I just like blood. My buddy Mr. Matt Wheels O'Nesty, my ride or die, my brother from another mother. He's a little more reserved. He likes some classy films, and the whole premise is he makes me watch one of his, I make him watch one of mine, and then we talk about it, and sometimes we might even enjoy it. So I'm gonna start this week. We pit two very incredible films against each other. He is
Another
recommend
great double feature. Just another
Another
amazing
great double
double
feature. We always
feature.
come up with them, but this week I gave him the Stephen King George Romero classic Creepshow, and he gave me a little flick I'm going to talk about right now called the Battle of Algeria. Is that correct?
The Battle of Algiers is
Algiers. Damn it! I knew I
well,
was.
I can it's okay. I can
Ah,
it's Battle of Algiers, but here's the thing. I can never pronounce the Italian director's name who made it. Gavrillo something. Gavrillo come on, IMDb, save me. Gillipan
IDB.
Parvo. There it is.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, that
Yeah,
guy.
that
But,
guy.
uh, but anyway, Wheels in the past has recommended me many a flick, and I have to say, for the most part, I've enjoyed things that I myself would probably never have ever discovered or even wanted to discover unless I met this dude. And I watched a flick on this show not too long ago called Come and See,
Yeah.
and it's still to this day I don't think it's one of those things I'll never forget. It shows all the atrocities of war, and I have to say this movie that I watched reminds me a lot of that, but in a lot of ways it is kind of different. So you know, did I enjoy it? I did, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Here's what happens. I sit down and I put it on, and it took me 100 times to like try to find a place to watch it. It was very
Yeah.
difficult to watch, but that wasn't part of the issue. So
Yeah.
I sit down, I finally get it on, no audio. So
Oh
I finally find another place, no subtitles. So
no.
after an hour of trying to figure out how I could watch this fucking thing, I sit down and it comes on, and I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. I'm like, another
And
fucking
then
wheels,
it
another
is
wheels masterpiece. Here we go.
it is
Like,
such a heavy movie. It's so funny that was the lead in.
yeah,
Was
dude, the
the
shit
number
starts, and I'm like, oh fuck, man.
so it leads into the frustration of war and of escalation. You were having trouble and an existential crisis leading into it.
But like,
And then you're thrown into a reality you had no choice in being in.
I have to say too, after a period of adjustment, I thought it was a little slow.
Yeah.
But once I started to kind of, I'm a big dumb meathead, so like it took me a while to kind of figure out what was going on. The whole, this story is about what's his name, Lapointe, Ali Lapointe.
Yeah, it's about the French. I mean, it's the French occupation of Algeria, which was, obviously a real life thing that happened, and sort of the resistance fighting, the Algerian resistance fighters, and their use of guerrilla warfare tactics to try and beat the French from occupying their native land.
But I have to say, man, I after probably about 15, 20 minutes, I was totally in. I
Yeah,
was totally absorbed, and I mean, the thing that that connects to me with these kind of films is like I'm not a big war picture guy, in all honesty, which I know is probably surprising, but
yeah.
because I mean it has violence and blood and all that, but I mean I'll be honest with you, dude, a lot of the times it kind of bums me out, but rightfully so. And I mean this film, does in the same way, but I do feel it's really good. And like the thing that impressed me watching this whole film, this movie's easily, what is it, from like 66?
Yeah, he made it in, I want to say later 60s. I think it was the later 60s
And
because it
and
was kind of pretty much in the aftermath of the real world event. Yeah, 66.
yeah, the thing that I'm watching this and I'm like, wow, this is such a such an incredibly well made and produced movie for this time. Like, I mean, every aspect of filmmaking is in it. You got the location, you got everything, and I'll be honest, there's so many scenes that I think, much like Come and See, that I'm never gonna unsee, dude. Like if you would name this movie, three or four different things just will always come to mind. Like, I mean, and
The bombing in the cafe.
I'm pretty sure you're probably gonna know what I'm gonna name. But I actually, I don't ever prepare for the show because I'm a lazy asshole.
Yeah,
I
good.
actually made notes for the show, so like I have to tell you, I know.
I
So
broke him yet again. I broke him
it
with
did,
all
dude.
of
You
these.
totally broke me. You're making me be all like responsible and shit. I don't like it, but it happened. So I'll tell you, dude. There's a lot of really hard hitting, impactful scenes of war, and like whenever like bombs go off and different things, there's different like there's one particular scene. In fact, there's probably two in the movie where you see children in the after effects of war, and they're carrying them out, and like it just rips your heart out. And I mean,
What's more sad? So this is a fun question of suspense or consequence. What is more alarming when you see the bomb getting dropped off? When you'll see the bomb getting dropped off, and then there's that moment of pause where you can see that the people are living their lives in the cafe, and
that's actually on my notes here, dude.
yeah,
I was actually going to get to that. I think one of the most disturbing scenes in the movie is once the one bomb's ready to go off, and they cut to everybody, like you said, enjoying their life. And then there's even that one little moment where they flash the bartender and he smiles,
yeah.
and then boom, everything fucking goes crazy. And I'm like, oh, that just gives me such a fucking agita, And I'm like, well, that's war. I mean, I have to
It's
say though, I
it's
have
not just
one.
war, it's sort of the absurdity of war.
Yeah, yeah.
This is more so the genuine, like, who is responsible? Is one innocent life, are we allowed to trade one innocent life for another innocent life? Like, it's a story of escalation. Like, the moment one side, the French occupation comes in and they start to enact their force on the Algerians, and then there's a response, and the Algerians respond with, they shoot the cop, and then and then you get the response to that, and then you get a bombing, and then you get an
Yeah, you
apartment
see
bombing,
every
and
level and
yeah.
escalation of war till yeah,
And in the wake of that, the people who suffer the most are the innocent on
yes,
all around.
that's a really good example of the absurdity of war. And I actually there was one scene in this movie that stood out to me the most that I really really liked, and it was that scene with Ali Lapointe, and then he's talking what is it, Ben Mahidi or whatever his name is, like they where he's working on the wall. Yeah, yeah, and then they have that discussion, and he confronts him, and he goes, "I heard you're not for the strike." And then he's like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "How come?" And then he's like, "Well, they want us to have no weapons." So then he's like, he goes in that big dry diatribe where he explains, like, you know, trying to start a revolution is impossible. Trying to keep it going is even more impossible. And then, dude, that gave me chills. That shit was amazing. So I mean,
The reason I bring up absurdity, and I was excited to bring this up to you too, is there's parts of that I've been getting real into Albert Camus's philosophy, and he was actually an Algerian. He was an Algerian, lived in France, especially during the Nazi occupation of France. One of the greatest philosophers to ever live. And there's pieces of this movie that are very clearly inspired from his writings. Not and it's not inspired of what side was saying what or who stood for what. It was sort of this basic concept of what is revolution and how do you build a revolution that doesn't just lead to a whole bunch of innocent people dying
mhm,
because you think the ends justify the means. And you see a lot of that throughout the entire picture, right?
yeah,
Even the resistance fighters, the ends justify the means, so we can, we'll set off bombs killing innocent people because we need to get rid of the French occupation. And then you have the French going, well, these terrorists are living within the communities, so we just have to bomb the whole fucking community because who knows where these terrorists are. I mean, this shit's still going on today. It's like folk music. It was never new and it never gets old.
It's
And
funny you
it's
say that,
so,
dude, because watching this, I thought there was a part in my mind where I'm like, this movie's from 1966, and you see a lot of like the seedy underbelly of things that still go on now. Like, I mean, not just war, but like the class struggle, the prostitution, the kids having to grow up way too early to be part of the regime and things like that.
yeah.
Like it's I'm just thinking, wow, man, this is all still very relevant and fucking how many years later? And I mean, the thing I actually did some research afterwards too because I was pretty interested. The thing that I find the most exciting about this movie was I read that is this true? Some most of the actors were actually people that went through the real experience and they actually used them in this film.
I don't I That's actually really funny you caught that because I never read that, but it wouldn't surprise me, especially if they're Algerian actors, because dude, that I mean, this movie is being made like practically while this circumstance is still going on. Like, because they were filming even in Algeria, and I don't think the French got the fuck out of there until maybe like early 60s, 60, like they might have even still been there when the movie was being shot. Um,
But yeah, that actually shocked me, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense because I mean, that's very interesting to me. I mean, but yeah, there's a lot of it stirred up a lot of emotions in me, I gotta say. And I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I mean that whole the ending, I was just like, holy fuck, I can't believe this really happened. Like, but yeah, I mean, I have to say, dude, another excellent pick. I was actually very wary and skeptical that I was gonna like this one because it started out kind of rocky to me, and
yeah.
I'm like, ah, fuck, I don't
And
know.
that's I think that's the cool thing about this movie that I like. And it's even so this and I'm happy you're watching this and even thinking like, ooh, come and see. Because even think about historically when these were made. So like come and see is sort of drawing a little bit of inspiration and anti-war sort of idealism kind of from this movie. It's
You
sort
know, I
of
didn't even make that correlation. You just said that, but now I can totally see that. I mean, yeah,
So these
absolutely.
are movies that I very much would always recommend to watch together when you want to get this full scope of what this sort of anti-war mentality is really supposed to be. Because I feel that both movies, like uh, Battle of Algiers, deals with everything on just this unbelievable micro level. Here is sort of the impacts of like modern day colonization and then the response to it, the guerrilla warfare, the here's all the people that are impacted by it, and sort of this it's micro, but it sort of gives you this 1,000 mile view. And then you watch a movie like Come and See, and even though this is sort of a bigger war spanning over a larger amount of territory, it's hyper focused on what it does to the individual. And I think both of these movies do deal with like the pain of the individual and sort of the pain of and the absurdity and what it means to, protect innocent life but I think like these are probably two of the best movies you could put next to each other.
Yeah,
If
they're
you're
very good
really
companion pieces for sure.
Oh yeah, if you want to get that nice anti-war flavor, I'd say start with Battle of Algiers, watch Come and See. You will never sleep for a week.
Well, dude, another good recommendation. I'm impressed with
I'm
my.
glad you liked it, and I'm glad. I do like hearing. I really like hearing you watching a movie like this and then taking something from it for like your life, like having sort of this curiosity to, oh my God, I'm gonna go look up the occupation of Algeria now and find out what it is. And then you start to learn about sort of this idea. Like I think it's really cool that this inspired you to start researching geopolitics and sort of get these different like because this is something that's geopolitical and it kind of what's going on in that story. It almost directly relates to shit that we're going through now and
I
how
was
we
thinking
view
that, man. Like,
power. I mean, there's so much there's so much packed into this movie, and it's so prescient and it's so important to watch. And I'm so happy that you watched it and you got from it sort of what the intention was, and that was taking the time to like learn or to question sort of what's going on in the world around you. And I think that's a really important thing for art. Like art is supposed to elicit that.
That's actually my final thought. I think the thing that I like the most is this is a good example of how film is timeless,
Yeah.
and can, ever be ever bit ever present in 2024 as it was back in 1966. So, you
Yeah.
yet again gave me a nice big injection of culture that I never had before. And speaking of injections of culture,
Speaking of getting injected with things that you have no fucking speaking of getting injected with things that you should have been being injected with, boy, was I injected real hard with some creep show. So Balls' movie that he gave me for this amazing double feature. We're trying to decide if both of these are considered horror movies, or what. I assume that this is a happier movie compared to Battle of Algiers, but Balls gave me Creepshow. He gave me Creepshow, directed by George Romero, written by Stephen King, which I didn't even realize Stephen King wrote it until I saw the credits at the end, and I was
you,
so because I'd
you,
seen him in the beginning, like in the segment, the anthology segment, where he's getting covered in the grass. I'm like, is
Jordy
that
Verrill, yeah, the
yeah,
Lonesome
I'm
Death
like,
of
is this
Jordy Verrill.
Stephen King? What the fuck is going on here? And it's like, oh yeah, it is Stephen King. And it's like, oh shit, he wrote all of these. Holy shit, that union, like that marriage of director and writer, why the fuck didn't they do more? Like that was like I know they made more creep shows, and I saw Stephen King, I think, wrote the second one, but George Romero didn't direct any more, did he?
No,
After
what
that?
had happened was I think it was a budgetary problem. And then what happened was they both ended up not being really able to do what they wanted to do. And it was supposed to be five stories like the first one.
Okay.
So what had happened was they cut the budget. So then what was originally going to be the other two stories in Creepshow 2, Romero went on and actually did Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, and then used those two stories.
Okay.
And then they
Okay, so
cut.
that's good. So at a complimentary stand, that's actually where I'm gonna go watch that next because that sounds fucking awesome. Dude, I am in love with Creepshow. I am so fucking in love
Oh
with
my
it.
God, you don't even. I've been dying to hear your thoughts for a week now. Creepshow to me is I'm a sucker for any horror anthology, and that's the granddaddy of all horror
Oh
anthologies.
my god, dude, the rewatchability on it is ridiculous. Like
Dude, you don't know how many times I've seen that film and bought that film and rebought that film. I just got the 4K Blu-ray. Dude,
so you know how when we talk and we do this show, there's times where like, and I feel like even with a lot of the stuff that you've even given me so far, part maybe the only ones, um, I rewatched I think half of Poultrygeist with a mutual friend with Jesse Pimpinella a couple weeks ago. But I think even most of the ones that you've given me so far, I really haven't had that like, I want to watch this immediately. You know what I mean? Dude, I got done watching this movie, and I'm like, holy fuck, like I gotta watch this. I gotta run this back. Like I gotta watch this again. Like I want to do. I feel like this is probably going to be one of those new movies that I'm going to watch like once or twice a year. Like I have a handful of movies that I do that with, like fucking Bronx Tale, Green Shoe Hooligans. I know I gave you that one.
yes.
Fucking
I love that, by the way.
Pulp Fiction is in there. I really feel like Creepshow is about to be like I was. It was there was like a weird like vibe to it. Like the movie itself had like
An
this really
atmosphere.
cool vibe and a
It's funny you say that and you picked up on that, dude, because I don't feel like very many movies have that atmosphere. And that movie has like this feeling of like, I don't want to say dread, but it has like a feeling of overlying tension to the point where you have to have some comedy once in a while to kind of keep it a little
every single interaction starts with a knot in your chest
yes.
and you don't necessarily understand why, and it is one of the cool so like this is kind of like so everything about this movie there was something like the acting was just hammy enough, right? Like every actor or every scene had sort of just this right amount of it. Nothing was being played straight, except weirdly for Leslie Nielsen's part.
I wanted
Leslie
to get to
Nielsen's
that, dude. I
part
was dying to see what you think,
was
dude. Because
out of
whenever I
every
told you that Leslie Nielsen was in Creepshow and he was one of my favorite movie villains of all time, you're like, Leslie
terrifying.
Nielsen.
terrified. So like every fucking character in this movie, because this is even another thing. Like I was so fascinated by how detestable every character was. Every character was such an asshole. Like I wanted all the bad things to happen to them, and then they would happen to the wrong person. But you're like, ah, that's that's okay. And then they would get, maybe there would be comeuppance, maybe there wouldn't. Like the but like Leslie Nielsen, um, he seemed to be the only one in the movie that was playing his role in just the straightest fashion that you could fucking play the role. Like it's almost like everyone else, George Romero was like, hey, we're making like a horror comedy kind of thing, And it's like he said, Leslie Nielsen, we are making the most serious fucking thriller you could ever imagine.
There's
Play
a
it
good
fucking
chance
that
that may
way.
have happened. Did I actually watched and I think it is on Shutter maybe. If not, it's on Screenbox. But they did, it's called Just Desserts, and it was the making of Creepshow. And it was a 2.5 hour documentary, and it's amazing, dude. Like any question or anything you ever possibly wanted to know is represented in this documentary, and it's amazing.
Oh, I wish I wasn't such a dipshit and I would have fucking looked harder on Shutter because I kind of wish I would have watched that
It's so
before
good.
we into this
But
conversation.
I
That's
need to
insane.
ask you what I ask every Creepshow fan now.
Weird.
What's your favorite story, and what was your least favorite story?
Okay, so this is my favorite part about anthologies is I feel like a good anthology, that answer will change just about every single time that you watch it.
It really does. Like I feel like
Because
they're all really solid.
right now I probably haven't stopped thinking about the final scene with oh my god, what's the actor's name? The rich guy in his fucking room in the fun
Oh, with the cockroaches,
with the
they're
cockroaches.
creeping up on you.
I have not stopped fucking thinking about that scene since I saw it. Like since I watched that, I don't know if it's because I
That's E.G. Marshall, I believe, right?
okay, I am more creeped out like out of everything. I think the thing that always bugs me, no pun intended, like I have a thing when it comes to like spiders or like creepy crawly shit. That's always where I always get, but there was something about that character, sort of his, it was here, I wrote down something 'cause I was trying to figure out. I had this feeling that every sort of story had like this underlying meaning or like this underlying idea that they were trying to fuck around with. And for that last one, I was like, this feels like some form of like it's gluttony, but it's also a want for purity. And then it was the consequences of both those things interacting with itself. And I thought that was really fucking cool.
I
Because
get that too, dude, because that would be his obsession with making everything clean.
he's
Like
obsessed with making everything clean. He's obsessed, but like not only obsessed with making everything, he's obsessed with sort of this idea of order and hierarchy because he's this rich motherfucker. And think about how
elitism.
he's talking like he's an elitist prick. He's talking down, dude. I laughed my fucking ass off when he picks up the phone and he finds out that the guy killed himself. He picks up the phone and it's the wife, and he goes, no, 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 no. He goes, who is this? He goes, it's I can't remember the guy's name. It's his wife, and he goes, oh, how's he doing?
Yeah. E.G.
Fucking
Marshall, dude, he's killer.
fucking
He's
love
killer in
it.
everything, dude. He's a legend. I mean,
Um,
this had such an ensemble cast too. It was ridiculous. Like, I mean, I love Adrienne Barbeau as Billy. I think she's one of the funniest characters in that movie.
oh, the lady who gets killed in the fucking
The crate, yeah.
the crate scene, because that crate, dude, that crate scene was ridiculous. Like, what I wrote down for that one is I feel like that was sort of this, um, what happens when you listen to that intrusive thought, like sort of like you open the like, and it was even metaphorical, and it was even sort of this metaphorical thing of you open the box, and the moment you open the box you're fucked. And that's sort of that intrusive thought, and it wasn't just killing his wife, but it was even sort of what they were alluding to with that professor getting a little, getting a little young one, getting a little
Yes.
college girl under his tail after he left his wife. Like it was like I'm watching this, I'm like, this is fucking hilarious. This is fucking terrifying. This is fucking bloody as fuck. And then it's like, holy shit! Then they're sneaking in these ideas into it. It was wild.
And I mean, it's not hard to imagine because this was like a love letter to these old EC comics, dude, like Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror and all those kind of things, like Crypt of Fear. And they always had this. They almost had like a like it was they were almost like morality tales that had like
Yeah,
like pitch
yeah,
black comedy mixed with horror. And that
yeah.
was some of my favorite things growing up. And it was Romero's growing up and King's growing up, and they wanted to do like this love letter anthology to those comics, and they did it. That was the perfect
It
job.
was where they're sneaking moral lessons into like some of the more absurd imagery that I think human beings could ever come up with. And but that's why I mean that's why I was like so fascinated because it's like that can only be done through the minds as powerful as fucking George Romero and Stephen King's writing.
Yeah,
Like
dude,
it
that to me is probably one of the biggest marriages in horror ever, and the execution is flawless. Like I don't know how many thousands of times I've seen that film, but it always gets better to me. Like, and I'll have to. I'm like the biggest Tom Atkins fan in the world, and his lines, in the wraparound story, they're among some of my favorite quotable things I ever do.
when
Like,
you're talking about the dad is always yelling at
yeah,
the
dude,
son.
I love him so much. I love him in everything. He's like one of my biggest heroes, and I don't know how many times I was like, I would just sit here and go, that's why God made fathers, babe. That's why God made fathers.
Everyone was just so ridiculous.
And just the scene of the creep, like looking through Billy's
Yeah.
window. There's just some weird fucking like just weird feeling, dude. It's so creepy. And like that was actually a real fucking like those were real, like a real skeleton, like from a
Oh, I could tell all. It seemed like all of the skeletons, the animatronics, blood. I mean,
Savini did the
yeah, it was
effects,
all a Tom
so
Savini fucking project. Which I noticed he was the trash man at the end, wasn't he?
yeah, dude. And then
Yeah, he
uh,
like,
he actually designed Fluffy in the crate and all that.
dude, like that. All of the every it's every piece to that movie. Um, seem to be so unbelievably well thought out. And I think that's what makes the rewatchability, like, I think that's what makes a movie rewatchable is when you have these movies where, like, even though it's, what is it, four competing stories, one, two, three, four, five competing stories
Yeah, and a wraparound.
with a wraparound, so six. Um, each of those things there's so many layers sort of just being stacked on top of each other that you almost are like you watch the movie and you're left going like I think I missed something, like I
Yeah,
think I
it
need to
is.
watch
It's
that
so
again.
rapid fire that like I know when you first seen it, it's like sensory overload. Because normally I don't, I can't speak for all anthologies, but I am a lover of horror anthologies. But
Right.
when you watch a horror anthology, usually you're lucky if two of the five stories are good. So like you have that time to kind of keep up. This is just so everything is so well done and so
It's
solid.
tight.
I'll be
It's
honest
a
with you, dude.
tight
This is
movie.
one of my favorite scores, like in film history. Like if you just listen to the isolated score, I think the score alone is brilliant.
See, and that impacts it too. That has such a direct impact on feeling and style. Like,
Yeah, if you ever wonder like how important music is to a film, this would be a perfect example to cite. I mean, I could go on all day. There's so many little facts and things I'd like to share about. Like, if you ever do rewatch it again, there's a thing called the traveling ashtray. The ashtray for Mother's Day in the beginning makes its way through every single.
I kind of noticed that, and when I was doing my little IMDb
Yeah, it's a
scroll,
cool little Easter egg, but
I know that's like cool. That's a really cool thing to do that connects every single idea. That's connecting each one of these things.
I'm actually a big Creepshow 2 fan too. When that came out, it was kind of not as well received because all those studio bullshit. But
Yeah.
it's only three stories. I think that's what pissed people off. But I have to say, dude, they're three solid stories. Like all three of the stories in Creepshow 2 are really good too. So, and they had to go animated instead of like a live action wraparound, which that bothered some people. That didn't really bother me. But and then Tom Savini actually uses his makeup and he actually dresses up like the creep. So I actually think that's kind of cool. And it had, I mean, it's not nearly as good as the first one. I don't think anything can be. I mean,
No, I
it's in
feel
my
like that's
top
what
top two anthologies of all time. So,
I do. I put it. I am absolutely in love with Creepshow. I have always been a fan. Like, cause I was even trying to think, I was like, what fucking anthologies like have I really dug over the years? And like recently, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, I
Mhm.
remember really, really fucking loving the Coen Brothers like last. I think it was the Coen Brothers' last fucking movie they made together. Like Slackers is technically an anthology. I remember fucking around with that. Like I loved sort of that style and stuff. But like, and we were actually been talking like four rooms. That's only four stories. Like, it's I'm happy you actually brought up this idea that like every one of these stories hit, because I even feel like in every one of the ones that I just named you, even though they're fucking greats, like even they still have
Better and
a
worse.
little bit of like they still have a little bit of an ebb going on. Like
Yes.
even in the I'm thinking of like Buster Scruggs, like the Tom Waits scene where he's like a gold miner. I remember like that's an awesome fucking story, but for some reason the ebb to it, like it almost slows the movie down too much. Like in Creepshow, the flow and the cadence to how they structure the story, what leads to the next, like it's sort of it's almost again back to the sort of this music point of the score. It's almost structured in a very musical way and this very
And
coherent.
it's oddly poetic too. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's dude. I
and I'm not trying to shit on other anthologies because the ones that I just named off
no,
are
no, no.
all
I understand
fucking
what you mean.
classics. But it's crazy how this, like how Creepshow as a whole, just is so tight. It's so tight of a movie of an
It is,
anthology.
dude. It's a perfect flow. Like it never, every time it never has a chance to slow down, and then when it picks up, it's never too fast. Like it always is
No,
perfect.
and you're so I was going to say, just because I know we got to wrap this up here pretty soon, to finish answering your question from earlier. I think the one that I least resonated with me was maybe even the Stephen King one, where he's the lonely guy
It's
who.
funny you say that, dude. When I was a kid, that was my least favorite one, and as I got older, I found a new appreciation for it.
Yeah, dude, as I'm even thinking, so before I come into the podcast, like you know how I am, I'll write down like notes or just to gather my thoughts. Um, Even as I'm thinking about that scene going, okay, this is probably the one that I didn't like the most. I start even thinking about it, I'm like, and I kind of start to like it more because then it's like, okay, here's like this really lonely dude driven by curiosity, nobody around him, and then sort of this consequence that he has just for himself. It's either going to be the thing that makes the world better or absolutely just fucking destroys it because he unleashed alien life. And he's so almost indifferent or apathetic towards the chaos that he just unleashed on the world, which again is a really good morality fucking tale for the individual to go, every one of your actions matters. So I don't know if I have a least favorite. I don't know if I have a most favorite. Because I feel like if we start to isolate one of these and talk about it, you'll convince yourself that it's the best fucking part of the picture.
It's almost impossible, dude. Like that's actually kind of the point I was trying to make. Because like I'm always when I was younger, I'm like, I think I like this one the best. But then I'd watch it again. I go, no, this is clearly the best. But actually the right answer is they're all the best because like it's
Yeah.
just a fucking perfect film. Like I mean,
That has to be viewed. It's a movie that absolutely can be viewed in isolation if you want to. If you just want to pick it up and watch a couple scenes, go and do something else and come back, or it's something that you sit down and it's gonna be the best fucking 2 hours you're gonna have for that week.
the most fun you'll have being scared. Yeah.
Seriously, and that's and listen, you got a double feature. You want to watch a movie that's terrifyingly anti-war, then you're going to want to go into something that's going to make you feel creeped out, skin crawling, and you're not going to understand why. It is like the perfect double feature.
It really is, dude. I don't know how we do it. It just kind of happens, but it is really quite brilliant. But I'll tell you, the first thing that actually I had actually seen the Bernie Wrightson graphic novel before I seen the film when I was a kid. I actually got it out of where we shot my short film at the Beaver Area Public Library.
At the library, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's where I rented it from when I was a kid, and that started my obsession to see the movie. And then from seeing the movie started my obsession. That's one of the big films that actually kind of started my obsession with horror when I was a kid.
Wait, so are you telling me that we filmed your first short film inside of the grounds that directly inspired your love,
Yes,
that directly leads to the creation of said short film?
that's
That
exactly what
was
I'm saying.
filmed within the location
Yep,
that
that's
you would
exactly what I'm
use.
saying.
Are you telling me that this is a loop? We're in a feed. That's
I know,
fucking
dude. It's almost
awesome,
like
dude.
Bizarro World, but that's actually 100% true. That is where I first rented that. My mom rented me that graphic novel, and then I that made me so high on wanting to see the movie. And then once I seen the movie, that was one of the big ones, dude. I used to watch Chiller Theater when I was a kid, and they would play all those kind of films, and that inspired me. And then once I rented that book out, like it was all like Mad Terror, dude. Like just it was just an obsession after that.
Yeah.
So Creepshow will always have a special place in my heart for that reason, but also for the fact I'm so glad that you actually. I was worried if you weren't going to like it or not because I had a friend of mine recently. I recommended him to. Normally, Creepshow's a slam dunk to people, dude. Even people that don't like horror
Yeah.
usually loves Creepshow, and I recommended it to him, and he was like, and I'm like, but I get it. I mean, to a younger generation, I don't know if it would still resonate as much.
It's interesting because we only have a couple minutes left to talk
Yeah.
about this, but it is really interesting to think about the ideas. I do not consider a movie like that slow by any means. There is so I feel like the beats per minute on that movie are really high. But what it does have that's actually interesting of like how filmmaking has to work now, or how like our sensibilities are with like our attention span. Each one of those segments did have like a 3 to 5 minute sort of first act
Mhm.
where it's like this real slow ramp up and then boom,
It's a
snap
slow
your
burn, yeah.
finger
Like, see, I
and
I like a
chaos.
slow burn, but I understand how people could not. So, I mean, I totally get
Yeah,
it. But so glad you love Creepshow, buddy.
I loved it.
I,
I'm happy I could turn you into an anti-war freak like myself. I
you
think it's
did, man.
good.
I
And
have to say, another slam dunk on
I'm
your.
going to be having you reading political philosophy books and fucking no time.
Let's not get
You're
carried.
gonna be see, I'm quoting camos. You're gonna be fucking.
I
You're gonna
guess
be
we're gonna
fucking.
have to do a book snob show
Yeah,
here
you're gonna
pretty
be
soon.
fucking quoting Sartre in no time.
Like,
It's gonna be sick.
yeah, I felt, yeah. But yeah, dude, I'm glad you got Creepshow. I loved it, man. I think we had another great, successful blockbuster episode with another great, double feature. And as always, buddy, I love you. I love doing this
Love you too,
show with you.
boss.
If we could just turn on one person to either one of these films, that's all the more reason to
In
go.
our lives, then not only do our lives get better, but the world gets better if
I
you
feel
watch
like
it.
we're making the world a better place,
Yeah.
2 films at a time. So I love you, bud. Have
And
a good
on that pretentious note,
Oh, yes, on that pretentious note, I say good night to my buddy Wheels, and we will see you next time here at the Movie Snobs. Ride or die.
goodbye.
Peace and love, and croissants. Goodbye.